What's up, Swaggy Vet Nation? Hey, man, we got an amazing video coming for y'all today. We got Jason Redman, Navy SEAL retired. We talked about buds. We talked about Ranger School. We talked about deployments, him getting shot right through the cheek, man. Hey, this was a crazy conversation. If you love our content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a Swaggy Vet video.
You and I on the set of the Swaggy Vet show. We do it for the sisters, bros, from coast to coast. A place where it's safe to go to make sure that a soldier's stories are told. All around the globe, going worldwide, representing military pride. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.
You should already be at the position of a 10 for them boys when they come out, the original first Swaggy veteran. And then you got that boy Big Pen. Hey man, salute me or shoot me. And if you ain't no vet, you better not talk like one.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Swaggy Vet Podcast. I'm your host, Big Pen. I got my co-host here with me, Super Swaggy. What's up, my man?
What's going on, baby? Let's get this party started, man. You know it.
All right, now we have an amazing guest today, y'all. Coming to the spotlight to the Swaggy Vets. He's a U.S. Navy SEAL, a combat leader, a man who started adversity in the face and refused to back down, a warrior, a father, an author, a motivational speaker, and a living example of what it means to overcome. Swaggy Vet Nation, let's welcome Jason, get off the X, Redman.
Klein. See, we've all got something that we trapped inside that we try to suffocate, hoping it dies. Try to hold it underwater, but it always survives, and it comes up out of nowhere like an evil surprise.
Let's get Swaggy.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you. Hey, so before we did the intro, we were talking about the Super Bowl, and you said you're a Bengals fan, of course, because you're an Ohio man.
That's right.
But what was cool was, and I learned that you went to high school in Lumberton, North Carolina.
I did. Yeah, right south of Fort
Yeah,
Bragg. Yep.
Yeah, I used to go to Lumberton a lot when I was stationed at Bragg. I was there for 12 years, and when I saw Lumberton, I was like, man, that's right up the road. That's cool, man. How was it growing up?
And then you went there and you were like, man, I'm going to go back to Fort Bragg. There's nothing
Actually,
in
I
Lumberton.
took...
Shout out to Lumberton, though, man. Shout out to my high school, Lumberton High School. Go Pirates.
Hey, shout out to... Yeah. So I actually went to Lumberton. I took a motorcycle class to learn how to ride a motorcycle in Lumberton. So it was cool. I had to drive up there every day for the class. It was cool. So yeah, man, Ohio, you born?
That's right, man. Central Ohio. Maybe an hour or 2 hours outside of Columbus, a little tiny town called Coshocton. So just a Midwestern kid, man. Grew up in a really patriotic family. My on two accounts, my dad's side of the family had all served. So including my dad. I mean, my dad was Army. So I know we got some big Army love in the house.
Yes,
we'll
sir.
Talk about how my dad was more proud when I went through some of the Army schools than the Navy ones I went through. And then my mom was a first-generation American. My grandparents were French. My grandfather actually fought with the French in World War II and then immigrated to Canada. My mom was born in Canada and then came down to America and became a naturalized American citizen when she was about 24. So both of them just tremendous love for country, tremendous appreciation for service, and that's what I grew up with.
So you had a lot of discipline early in life, having all that, huh?
No, I don't want to say that. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
My dad, they were pretty strict. I would say we were more strict because A, we were poor, and B, strong faith-based family. So, I wasn't going out and running around per se, but mainly because we didn't really have the means to do that anyways. I did bounce back and forth between my parents. My mom was probably a little more easygoing than my dad, but my dad, he wasn't the traditional. I know that some individuals grow up with military parents and their parents run their family like a drill instructor. And it really wasn't that way for me. I grew up, I was a normal every day. There was nothing exceptional about our family. We were a lower income to lower middle class at best at times. And for me, it was just a love of country. and I wanted to serve, and I never lost sight of that from a very young age. I mean, really, I think 3 years old, I told my parents I wanted to be a firefighter. And then probably about 7 or 8, I was like, I'm going to the military. And I never lost sight of that.
Oh, wow. So do you have any siblings?
I do. I have two older sisters and a younger brother. My oldest sister did not serve in the military, but both of my other siblings did. So my sister was career Air Force and continues to work for the Air Force up in D.C. And my brother was a Marine, and both of them did combat deployments, both deployed to Afghanistan.
Okay. So growing up, was there a sibling rivalry?
No, maybe with my sister who's in the Air Force, we're really close. We're Irish twins. We're only 11 months apart. So there was probably a rivalry there a little bit. She was a big bully to me when I was younger until finally I got bigger than her and I realized, man, I can hit her back. And that lasted only a little while before my dad was like, okay, that's done. You're starting to get bigger and stronger than her, and you're not allowed to do that. But we always stayed close. I went in the Navy before she did. She was in school, or before she went in the military. She was in school and decided to pursue ROTC, and she was like, I'm thinking about going to the Navy. And I said, nah, you should go Air Force. I said, the Air Force will take good care of you. And she did, and she did. She had a phenomenal career, man, and continues to do so. And then my brother and I were too far apart. He's 7 years younger than me. My oldest sister is 11 years older than me. So, we're definitely tight. They're my siblings, but there wasn't that rivalry.
Oh, okay, I see. So at what age did you start thinking about the military?
Like I said, young. I am man. I'm 50. I'm turning 51 here soon. I know everybody thinks I'm so much younger. It's all that clean living. I've never done anything dangerous. I've, never had a surgery, never been injured. That's what keeps me looking young. Um, but no, I'm 50, so I'm a child of the GI Joe generation, man. I grew up in the 80s, and was really fascinated with the military. I loved GI Joe as a young kid, and Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. I mean, some of you people are gonna be like, he's such a geek, but if you grew up in that time, you can appreciate that. And I mean, and those were the years of Rambo and Schwarzenegger as Commando and all these amazing things. And I remember just seeing those and learning about special operations. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I'd originally wanted to be a pilot when I was younger. My grandfather was my dad's dad was a highly decorated B-24 pilot in World War II. Distinguished Flying Cross, 7 Air Medals. Actually, we have the article. He actually got shot down, and I don't know why they didn't bail out, but he crash landed with the entire crew in a snowfield in Yugoslavia, and then they got out and they evaded. They must have been pretty close to the Italian lines, but they evaded back across into Italy, friendly lines, and he got the Distinguished Flying Cross for that. But the article,
you got to have some giant
balls.
Yes, giant stones to do that.
Yeah, man.
Have you now? Has he told you any crazy stories? World War II, that's some crazy. I couldn't even imagine.
Unfortunately, I never got to meet him, man. My grandfather died young. I never got to meet him. He came home from the war, and I think in his late 50s, I mean, early 60s at best, he had a heart attack. I never got any of those stories. I only have the award citations. I have the newspaper article, stuff like that. But pretty interesting. My grandmother remarried, and her husband, Floyd Hudson, he was an Army infantry guy in World War II. So I did get a lot of stories from him, which was pretty amazing. and a little less so from my grandfather who fought with the French. So I just grew up in with warriors. I mean, my paternal so my grandfather who flew B-24s, his brother flew, not Mustangs. He flew in the Pacific Theater and he was shot down and killed. And I have the letter the condolence letter from
wow.
Roosevelt.
So 18-year-old Jason goes in there and says, I want to join the Navy. Why the Navy, not the Army?
Well, let's back up for a second. 16-year-old Jason Redman walked into the recruiting station and said, I want to join the Navy and be a SEAL. And there was a big, crusty boatswain's mate. And for anybody, I don't know if you guys know Navy, boatswain mates are the original sailor. Boatswain's mates are the crusty dudes who work on the decks. And like literally, it was probably the first rate in the entire United States Navy, going all the way back to the Constitution. Boatswain's mates run the ships. And this guy was crusty as crusty can be, man, like Popeye, tattoos everywhere. And I walked in, little scrawny runt. 16-year-old Jason Redman was like 4'11" and 95 pounds. You know, probably my voice hadn't even deepened yet. I probably walked in and was like, I want to be a Navy SEAL. And that dude laughed his ass off at me and was like, get out of here, man. You don't have what it takes. You'll never make it. And I kept coming back and he kept chasing me out. So, true story, I finally got fed up with this cat and I'm like, well, I'm going to go join the Army. I'm going to become a Ranger. I'm going to become a Green Beret. So I went down the pipeline to become a Ranger, went all the way to MEPS. And it was at MEPS that they disqualified me because when I was a kid, I'd ruptured my eardrum. And when the doctor looked in, he said, oh, this kid can't equalize at altitude, so he's not going to be able to jump. And I knew that wasn't true because I'd lived in the Virgin Islands for a little while. My mom ended up moving down there, so I dove. So I knew I could equalize. So the Army, when I was at MEPS and they disqualified me, they were like, oh, well, you can go do something else in the Army. You don't have to jump out of airplanes. And I was like, dude, no special operations guy is a dirty leg. Like, you have to go jump out of planes, man. And they were trying to convince me, like the recruiter's calling. He's like, nah, man, you got to sign up. You could do other cool things. And I was like, nope. So I left and I went and got a doctor, an ENT, to actually evaluate me. And I got a letter and I was going to bring it back to the Army. I swear to God, I was walking into the recruiting station and the Army recruiting office, they were all in one place in Lumberton, North Carolina. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps, all in one little hallway across from each other. And I'm walking in to talk to the Army guy, and I'm walking by the Navy office, and there's a new recruiter, and his name was Henry Horn, Petty Officer Henry Horn. And he said, hey, are you the kid that's been trying to be a Navy SEAL? And I said, yeah. He said, well, I'm new here and I heard about you. You still interested? And I said, absolutely. He said, well, come on in. Let's figure out how to make that happen. So I walked in, I had that letter, I got a waiver, and that's how I ended up going down the road to become a SEAL. You know, years later, I get to go through Airborne and Ranger School too.
But yeah, I can't wait to talk about that. We're going to dive into that.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
That's crazy too. He probably like heard you and you walk right in the door. He was like, "Oh, look at God."
Yep, exactly, man.
He brought him to me. Hey, look at God. He brought him to me. Hey, Navy SEAL.
Yep.
I got
you. Want to do this? Let's
come
go.
here and talk
and
to him.
He did, man. He was a great guy. Shout out to Henry Horn. I got to reconnect with him probably 4 or 5 years ago and thank him in person. Gave him a signed copy of my book.
And that had to feel amazing.
It was cool. It was cool to come full circle. It's always good. I've tried to find people throughout my life who have helped me and mentored me or made a difference. And, you know, in this life, you drive a lot, but there's always people who help.
True. That's what makes the military, all branches, cool. Once you build camaraderie with a group of guys or a group of women, man, it sticks beyond death. I'm a recon, so I say beyond the field is green, man. We all gonna meet each other there.
Yep. Amen.
In the future, brother.
Amen.
But let me say, when you committed to the SEAL path, like what did you think it would what did you have in your mind it was gonna be, and then like what was it actually it when you went there?
So, man, it's a little bit of a deep question. Let's split that into two parts. I came in pre 9/11. So I joined, I was still in high school when I signed the paperwork, which crazy, September 11th, 1992 is the day I joined the Navy. Yeah, who knew back then? Um, and I went to boot camp right after I graduated high school. I headed to boot camp in the summer of 93. So we're pre 9/11 years. And I don't know if you guys served pre 9/11 also. Um, Back then, there's always, we all know it, everybody in the military knows it. The military ebbs and flows. We have peacetime military and garrison military and then wartime military. And in peacetime military, I probably had this romantic view growing up, G.I. Joe, the movies. I think they give this romantic view of war, and that's what I grew up with. And I did well, and all that was great. But I still had this romantic view. And I mean, when you get into combat, that kind of changes as I got older, and you get into combat, and you realize you see the best and worst in humanity in combat. But it also is very real. There's nothing glorious or romantic about seeing friends killed and dealing with that, and even killing other people. I mean, so it was just, I was different. But even when I was young, there was still an amazing part let me rephrase that. Even when I was old, there was still an amazing part of it to be a part of an elite unit, any part of the military. The history, the lore, the unit camaraderie, all of those things is incredible. Just, it comes at a price. There's a high level of sacrifice just to be in the military. You don't really understand that when you're young, or at least you need to be willing to do it. And that price becomes even steeper when we're going to war.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Coming from a SEAL, I gotta agree with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me see, Val. What surprised you the most about SEAL training?
I don't know if anything totally surprised me. I am fascinated for a lot of people when they show up at BUDS. So BUD stands for Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training. Every Navy SEAL has gone through BUDS. If you meet any clown out there who tries to tell you, oh, they won't find me because my name's been erased, that's bullshit. Um, yeah, we have guys that later they might have done classified things, but them going through training is unclassified and they'll have a class number. And what'll happen is you show up to SEAL training and you have about 4 weeks of pre-training where they're teaching you all the things you need to know about being in SEAL training. How to use the boats, how to run the O course, where everything is. Here's the pool, this is what happens at the pool. You have to learn all the basic things so that on day one you can hit the ground running. And over that 4-week period, the instructors apply just a little bit more pressure, every day leading up to. And I think most people think, boy, by the time it gets to the last day of that 4-week pre-training, like you're at close to the real pressure of what it's going to be like. And the instructors tell you that, like, this is what it's going to be like next week. If you think this is tough or whatever. And then day one of training starts and it goes from this to this. And you see this max exodus in that first week. You'll lose tons and tons of people that quit in the first week of training. And I'm always dumbfounded because they say, I didn't think it was going to be this hard. And I'm like, you signed up for SEAL training, man. Like, what are you expecting? You're going to be cold and wet and it's going to be unfair and you're going to punch it in the head every single day. So I was always fascinated at that. I don't want to say I expected that, so it didn't really shock me. Don't get me wrong, it was really hard. The water on the West Coast is freezing all year round. It just sucks. And then Hell Week's really hard. I definitely several times during Hell Week questioned myself, like, can I make it? I even at one point towards the end of Hell Week, I thought about quitting. I didn't think I could keep going.
Okay, so what? That's going to my next thing. Like Hell Week, you mentioned Hell Week. Now, Is there something in Hell Week that humbled you, or was it after or before training, or was it Hell Week that got you?
No, Hell Week got me, and the reason why I often talk to people about be careful of unrealistic expectations. You know, oftentimes we think something's going to happen, and when it does, and we base our behavior on either that happening or not happening. So either way, if it doesn't or it does happen, people they do their behavior off that. So the reason I tee that up is I was told by a friend when I went into Hell Week, hey man, just make it to Wednesday morning, it gets easier. And there's some truth. Most guys in Hell Week quit within the first 48 hours. And then the amount of quitters becomes exponentially lower every single day you get closer to Friday. And the reality is if you make it to, Wednesday or Thursday, you won't quit. It's almost impossible because everybody hits this. The instructors are trying to push you to the breaking point where where it doesn't matter what they do anymore. Once a human gets inside their head and learns to push past that point of pain and discomfort, they'll just go to their death after that. And they try to get everybody to that point. And after Wednesday, you're so tired from lack of sleep and everything. My buddy who said, "Hey, make it to Wednesday morning, it gets easier." He was right technically, but you don't realize that. If you're on the outside watching, looking in, you see it. Things slow down. Some of the things aren't quite as complicated, but you got to remember, you've been awake for 72 hours and wet and coated in sand and bleeding and miserable. So you don't realize it still feels as hard even when you make it to Wednesday morning. So Thursday night was my hardest night of Hell Week. The temp dropped. I was in my boat crew we were just not doing well. We were losing a bunch of races, and every time you lose, we have a saying in SEAL training, it pays to be a winner. If you win, typically you would get a break. And if you lose, so the winning boat crew got a break and the losing boat crew got punished. And we were just getting punished again and again and again and again. And I remember we were at the pool and we were standing they were making us, as one of our punishments, is go stand on top of the 11-meter dive platform, 33 feet off the deck. You're right next to the San Diego Bay. It was about high 40s that night, and there was probably a 25-knot wind blowing off the water. And I remember standing up there. I was, I'm a skinny little runt, man. I was probably 135 pounds, soaking wet. And I felt like my bones were going to break. I was shaking so hard. And I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And I thought about quitting. I also thought about make it to Wednesday morning. It'll be easier. And I was like, but, and I try and remind other people of this, never lose sight of the goal. Like my goal was to be a SEAL. And if I quit, it would have ended that goal. And I also try and tell people never quit in an emotional moment. Like I was emotionally compromised. So, and I always try to tell young guys this. If you're listening to this and you're thinking about going to Ranger School, SEAL training, I don't care what training it is, get through the pain and discomfort, get to the other side of it. And then when you have a moment to take a break and reset your mind, then decide you really want to quit. 90% of the time you won't. And thankfully I pushed through that.
That's everything's mental, especially military. It's meant to break you. Once you, like you say, once you get past that part of, you know what, they not gonna kill me. I'm not gonna die. I might, but I'm not gonna die all the way. So I'm a SEAL.
Yep.
That's real admirable, right? The Hell Week, you made it sound crazy. So hey, that's hey, I like to salute some of the people I interviewed, man, because you're crazy, Jason. You're crazy, Jason. Now, when you got to a new unit, like what is it something a new guy mistake that you made early on that something you could laugh at now?
Two things. The first thing, as a new guy, man, you just finished the hardest training in the entire U.S. military. And then you go to airborne school, and no offense, it's a joke. It really is. I mean, you just finished the hardest training in the military, and then you get there. There's a reason SEALs don't go through airborne school anymore, because the Army got so fed up with us In early 2001, the Army finally told the Navy, we're no longer taking SEALs. Like, we're tired of dealing with you guys. You're just a pain in our ass. So I finished SEAL training. I went through airborne school, and then I checked into my SEAL team. And I remember checking in, and I'm like, man, I'm king dingaling, man. I just finished SEAL training, airborne school, and yeah, we checked in, and the older dudes were waiting, and they were like, go get wet, and we were like, wait, what? Like, and they were like, go jump in the Cyclops. It's like this. It's a harbor right next to SEAL Team 4 where I was stationed. So I'm like, we all run and get wet, and we come back in, and the guys are like, make no mistake, you might have just graduated buds, but understand this: all these dudes around you, they did too. Nobody cares. You know, day one starts right now. You want to be here, you better show you got the ability to earn it and be a part of it. So that was kind of a big bite of humble pie on day one. And then Chris, probably a dumb new guy mistake I made. I was gullible, and I got sucked into going and getting the brass magnet. So
That's hilarious.
Oh no, I think we all have had something like that. I got tricked into getting an exhaust sample from the truck before, and then they sent me up to staff duty to get the keys to the drop zone. So
yeah, those are all good.
Let me see. Your first deployment. Like, walk us a little bit through your first deployment. Like, paint the picture of, like, when you first got there and was like, hey, I really got to do some shit.
So my first deployment was to South America, and we were doing both training. I went to different countries. We were training host nation conscripts and working with special operations units. But it was maybe August of '97. I went to Colombia, and that was a counter drug mission. And that was kind of and we were deep in central Colombia, deep in FARC controlled territory. FARC was the narco. They worked with the narcos, and they were a paramilitary force that was destabilizing Colombia. They worked hand in hand with the cartels. We were kind of on the tail end of the cartels, but Colombia was still a really dangerous place. And it was our job to both train and support counter-drug missions that were occurring in Colombia. And I'll never forget one of the first things that, it was kind of the first time I was like, oh shit, this is for real. We had put sensors, and this is unclassified now, I write about this in my book. We had put sensors along the river to track boat traffic that was happening at night. And you know, this is the tech back then is nothing like now. You actually had to go recover it, and then you would download we didn't have Wi-Fi or all that shit back then. So I remember when we went to recover the sensors, and my senior chief was like, hey, new guy, go get that sensor. And I was getting off the boat to go get it, not thinking anything of it. And a Colombian officer with us was like, hey, be careful. If the FARC finds anything, they booby trap it. And he's like, boo. And like, I remember I'm walking up to where the sensor is hidden. And, you know, every step I take, every tree that snaps, I'm just like in my mind, I'm like, boom, boom. Like my heart's pounding in my chest. And so I managed to recover it. Nothing happened. But and then several weeks later, the FARC tested the defensive of the camp we were in. So they started shooting into our camp, which caused the Colombians to go full death blossom. Like at 1 a.m. in the morning, we woke up, and all four corners, 60s are going off. They're lobbing 40 Mike HEDP into the wood line. I mean, it was my first introduction into like waking up in the middle of the night in a combat zone. And the second thing that I was like, holy shit, man, this is for real.
Oof. Oof. This is me shivers down my back, man. Like, what changed in you after that? After you witnessed that, after you felt that, and you got back to the States, like what changed in you?
You know, I wish I could say that, man, a whole lot changed. I don't think none of us were injured or killed. I mean, there was a Colombian killed. I remember seeing that for the first time, the first person I'd seen shot. But I was still young, man. I was 22. So I was still young, and I don't think it really set in. And we were still technically in a peacetime military. So we still trained hard and played hard. I wish it had clicked and I had pushed a little. I mean, I was a good SEAL. I was a talented SEAL. But I tell you what, I often tell people, it was not until years later I truly tried to become the elite version of myself. I was good enough to do very well, probably operating at a 60 to 70% level. I mean, we probably know a lot of people like that. They're talented enough. And I wish I had changed then. I still was able to be successful. It wasn't until years later we got into combat and we started losing friends that I began to realize, like, hey man, like you owe it to both yourself and your teammates that you need to be the best version of yourself in all aspects to do this, because that's the consequences.
So would you say your first deployment was something that tested your soul, or was it some deployments after that where like, okay, you know what, this is my life, and like what was going through your head so much during that time?
My first combat deployment is what tested my soul, and it was for two things. My first combat deployment, I was a brand new officer. I was making mistakes. I had ego and arrogance had gotten to me. I'd been around the block. I was E6 when I got commissioned. I was ranked super high. I'd done very well up to that point in my career, and I came back as an officer thinking I was I don't know, Patton or something. And I got commissioned. I went to school in 2001, and 9/11 happened while I was at school, and then I got commissioned in 2004. So everybody in the SEAL teams had gone to war, and I hadn't. I mean, granted, you know, the little skirmish in Colombia was it. I mean, it wasn't like combat operations that were happening in Iraq and Afghanistan. And those combat operations rewrote how special operations, and I think a lot of the military conducted operations. So here I was, this guy thinking, hey man, I'm this experienced prior enlisted guy. I know all these things. And I came back to a new platoon thinking that, and I was surrounded with younger guys who had combat experience. And all of that led to some poor decisions on my part, and stepping on your toes when you've done really well is a humbling experience. So instead of handling that well, I was self-medicating, which only was further hurting my career or hurting my credibility as a leader. Red Wings happened on my deployment. Red Wings, the lone survivor story. I was in Germany when the helicopter got shot down. But that was my troop. I was originally in that platoon. The guys that were on the helicopter were guys that I was originally in that platoon. Mike McGreevy, the OIC, was a friend of mine. And I later got bumped to our sister platoon. I got moved over. God works in mysterious ways, because if he hadn't, I probably wouldn't be here today. But I remember when the helicopter got shot down, we were all we were getting ready to rotate into Afghanistan. We had about a week before we rotated in. And I remember several members of our troop, our chief and a couple of guys, they immediately flew to Afghanistan. The rest of us were packing all our gear, knowing we were going sooner than planned. And several days later, they recovered Marcus and Danny Dietz and Mike Murphy's bodies, and me and a couple of the guys drove to Ramstein and met up with our teammates who had escorted both Marcus and Danny Dietz and Mike Murphy back. And that was the first time I met Marcus, and then we flew to Afghanistan maybe a day or two later, and Axe was recovered, I think, 3 days after we got on the ground in Afghanistan. And so they hadn't even had the memorial ceremony. We lost 11 guys, 19 total, 8 Army Special Operations guys with the 160th, and 11 SEALs, and 5 of those guys were friends of mine. They were teammates. You know, my boss, Eric Christensen, Mike McGreevy, Jacques Fontaine, Jeff Lucas, and Jeff Taylor were all guys I had worked directly with. And I remember the ramp ceremony and the memorial. Like, that was kind of the first time, like, holy shit, like, yeah, welcome to combat, man. This is the reality of what we're doing. So that was a hard moment. I think all of us on that deployment kind of struggled. And in some ways, it led me to make some bad decisions because we all wanted revenge and I wanted to get in the fight. And that ultimately led me to September 23rd. I made a bad call on a mission. We were doing a large takedown of a valley, multiple, both American, and we had some foreign units that locked down. It was a huge operation. And I was in an overwatch position. Our guys got into a big gunfight on the ground. And I made the decision to go down into the valley to try and support those guys. There's a lot to this story. I tell the whole story in my book, The Trident. It was a bad call. And I did it not because I justified it in my mind that I'm going to help my brothers. But the reality is I did it because I wanted to get in the fight. And what I didn't know, and I did it impulsively instead of making sure I was coordinating to know what was going on. And when I did that, I dropped off. I took a machine gunner with me, so I placed his life in danger too. We're super lucky. I mean, the Taliban was all through this area, and we're super lucky we didn't get compromised by some dudes jumping out of a cave and shooting us. But they were trying to call in air support. And we delayed that air support by almost 30 minutes because we lost radio comms as we moved down into that valley. It finally got comms in the bottom, got my ass out of the valley, and make a long story short, I almost got kicked out of the SEAL teams from that. And that was rock bottom for me. The combination of losing our guys, the combination of that leadership mistake where guys were like, kick that guy out, he's dangerous. I actually thought about taking my life in Afghanistan, put a gun in my mouth in my room and almost took my life. And God, thankfully, kind of smacked me in the back of the head and made me look at a picture of my wife and kids on the desk in front of me. And I went and got help. But that was rock bottom for me. So you talk about first deployment, and it's actually rock bottom. It's the hardest point in my life. I had a lot of friends who turned their back on me and stopped talking to me after that happened. I got ostracized. And I mean, hey, man, a lot of it I did to myself from poor leadership decisions, and I also fought back. I was kind of in denial. But that became a growth journey. That really changed everything. That was a pivotal moment in my career. I'm thankful that my commanding officer gave me a second chance. That's how I ended up going to Ranger School. That was kind of part of my remediation, was to go to Ranger School to grow up. And I took that opportunity and ran with it. But yeah, Chris, that was rock bottom for me.
Oh, now you talk about bad leadership. Now, what's a leadership win that you proud of? Something that your guys or somebody else might like realize you did for them, but also it was something for yourself.
So probably one of the proudest moments for me, because I carried a little bit of a black cloud while I was redeeming my reputation and credibility. And there were a lot of dudes who didn't trust me. I mean, I came back and they were like, yeah, that's that dude that messed up in Afghanistan. So it took a while to rebuild that trust and credibility. Deployed to Iraq, a super intense deployment. I'll be honest, for special operations guys, it was like the deployment of a lifetime. I know a lot of guys who did a lot of deployments, and none of them had a deployment like our 07 deployment to Iraq. I mean, we did over 80 direct action capture kill missions on that deployment. We got into a lot of gunfights, and we captured 124 individuals and killed, I don't remember how many, but we made a dent in the battle space, man. And on June 21st, we took down a pretty large, complicated target, and I was the assault force commander for one part of the compound. And we got into a big gunfight. The enemy was barricaded on the roof. A lot of people know DJ Shipley. DJ's out there. DJ was one of our guys in that engagement. They started dropping grenades down on us. We had all these women and children that were outside. We had to pull all them inside. Our interpreter got severely wounded by a grenade. So now, and a couple of other guys got fragged by that grenade that wounded our interpreter. So now, we got a casualty collection point. Our medic's trying to save the interpreter. I got all these women and children screaming inside the house. We got a machine gun who's throwing grenades down on us. We got another target behind us that's engaging us. And DJ went up, and our point man went up to try and take out the machine gunner on the roof, and DJ got shot in the chest. Thankfully, his body armor stopped it. They pulled back down. So I remember going around that. So we just held on that stairwell. I remember going around the target trying to, we wanted to get a head count to knock out this target behind us, to call in a fire mission to hit this house behind us where we were taking fire from. And I couldn't get a head count. So I kept running around. I kept moving around the target trying to get a head count. It was just chaos. And it was one of these things where I felt like things were moving in slow-mo. I remember coming around the corner and like three of our guys, there was a wall like right here, and the guys were standing out in the open like shootout at OK Corral. And I remember coming around the corner and seeing them, and I was like, what are you idiots doing? Like, get behind the wall. I mean, shoot and use cover, man. So I remember that, but I still didn't have a full head count, and we couldn't release this fire mission with a full head count. So as we were going to the target, I remember we had gone by another house that was about 60 yards away, and there were sleepers outside. And we told not the Colombians, we told the Iraqi scouts that were with us, we said, hey, jump on these sleepers, literally hold security on them while we take down this target. And then we went and took down our target. Well, it dawned on me in my mind, there were supposed to be 2 Iraqis that had dropped off, and it started dawning on me. I'm like, man, did they kick another guy there? And that's why I don't have a full head count, but they didn't have a radio. So I remember I was like, man, I got to send somebody back there to get a full head count. But I was like, you know what? And to do so, I had to expose myself to the machine gun on the roof. And I was like, I'm not going to ask somebody else to do it. So I did it. So I told one of our gunners, light up the rooftop. And I sprinted the 60 yards of that building. And man, I tell you what, when you're running for your life, holy smokes, man. I felt like I was moving in slow motion. But thankfully the enemy didn't see me. Yeah, that's what it felt like. But thankfully the enemy didn't see me. And our guys were crushing that rooftop. I had 2 guys that I told, man, just crush that rooftop. Sure enough, I got to the house, and there was my 3rd guy. Ran back, and we were able to crush that house behind us. And then we fell back and ended up calling a fire mission on the house. So after that mission, all the guys were like, man, Red did an amazing job. So I think that was kind of the turning point for me from the mistake I made in Afghanistan to, hey, Red's good, man. He knows what he's doing, and he's doing it right.
Oh, man.
I got a quick question, Jason. When you have to make those split-second decisions, you're the commander on the ground, what's going through your head, and how do you know what decisions to make? Training and experience. I mean, the more you do, you also rely on your guys. I mean, they're a perfect example of something that happened. So, if you're a young leader, man, listen to your guys. It doesn't mean you're always going to do what they say. You got to have a balance, and sometimes, but a perfect example, some leaders, I'm the leader, I have to make the decision. And probably when I was younger, I was that way. I felt like, man, I'm the new leader, so I have to make all the decisions. And that's not true, man. If your guys are doing great things, a leader just sitting back and allowing them because they know everything's moving forward the way it should, that's leadership. It's just, you don't have to be directly active. So what happened is we're in this target, it's chaos. Before, I think it was after I'd run and got a full head count, but we still had the machine gunner and the enemy on the roof dropping grenades down and engaging guys on the other targets. And my boss in one of the other buildings was like, you guys got to take out that machine gunner. And I remember telling
my team lead that night was a guy by the name of Mark Weiss, an amazing dude who's no longer with us. Mark died in 2017. But Mark was a great dude. Aside from he was a Michigan fan and is an Ohio State fan, but I mean, what can you do? What can you do? So
the Ohio State.
the Ohio State. So Mark and I always made fun of each other at the big games. But anyways, we're on target, and I told Mark, I said, dude, we got to get guys up on that stairwell and take out that machine gunner. And he looked at me and he goes, Red, that's a suicide mission. He's like, those guys have a PKM on that rooftop that the second we break that stairwell, they're going to cut us in half. And I was like, you know what, man, you're right. So, I could have said, hey, man, you're going to do it. You're going to get up on that rooftop. And I could have just fed guys to their death. But Mark kind of caught me in the moment like, you're right, that's a bad call. So we ended up gathering everybody together. We ended up grabbing the women and children and shooting, like doing a shoot and maneuver movement with these women and children back to that other house where our 3 Iraqis were, and then calling in an airstrike. But yeah, so I mean, listen to your people. I mean, it doesn't always mean they're right. Maybe Mark had said, no, I don't want to do, or maybe he'd come up with something else that wasn't a good idea, and I would have said, hey man, I disagree. Like, you're going to do this. And instead, he was right. And I'm thankful that he made that call. It was a good call.
Bingo. We thankful that he made it too, Jason.
Yep.
So you talk to us. Much respect, man. I know in teams and stuff like that, and being an operator, stress is immediate everywhere for y'all. So like, what was your go-to to keep you sharp, or what would you do? Would you train on your own, or would you just to stay sharp, or would you just like it's all mental with you?
No, I mean, definitely for me, and even today, I mean, I think there's a reason that in the military we work out. Not only is it, it's a physical endeavor that we do, especially if you're in a frontline combat unit. But I mean, all the military works out because of the mental and the stress release, and it's good for you. Even today, man, I still work out all the time just because, one, I want to take care of myself, but two, like if I don't, I feel the impact of that. And it was no different overseas. It didn't matter. We were operating all the time. We also still worked out. I also was training to screen for our next tier SEAL team. When I was coming home, I'd been approved to screen for that team. And so I was training super hard. I mean, sometimes on combat mission nights, I would do a really light workout. But if we weren't operating that night, I was running and doing a full workout. And those were the things. And then my family, man, that was my, talking to my wife and kids. My kids were young. They were, my son was 8, and my daughters were 5 and 2. So, I mean, I'd talk to my wife whenever I could. And I watch movies and shows. If any of you guys remember that show, The Shield, I watched the entire season of The Shield on that deployment. I think I watched Lost. So, and I like to read. So I do things to decompress.
Yeah, that's what we did. We got you could get all the seasons from the bazaar.
Yep.
And they'd have them. Yep. So, man, I'm really excited. So you said part of leadership, you went to Ranger School, man. How did you feel going into Ranger School?
I was bitter. Yeah, I was bitter. I'll be honest, when I got sent to Ranger School, instead of, I should have been like, hey, thanks, I got a second chance. Like, this is a great opportunity to grow. I don't know, with everything that happened, I've often told people I had kind of a victim mindset. I felt like I got thrown under the bus. I still wasn't taking ownership for the mistakes that I made. I was blaming everybody else, which is a frequent thing that happens in life. So when I went to Ranger School, I checked in February of 2006, right at the very beginning. As a matter of fact, I'll never forget, I was in the hotel in Fort Benning and the Super Bowl was on. It was Sunday night, the Super Bowl was on, and I was kind of half-heartedly watching it as I prepped my gear for ready to get my ass kicked in the next day. And I was just angry. I was just angry about it. I checked in that first week, and I had a chip on my shoulder. I felt like I felt like I'd been thrown under the bus being there. Here I was, combat deployment and special operations unit. I could pick up a sat phone and talk to my wife, you know, every other day or whatever it was. And now I'm in Ranger School and I can't talk to my kids at all. You know, you're just, yeah, it goes back to only letters. So I was just kind of angry about all of it. And I ended up failing the land nav course on Wednesday at Ranger School, and it was totally my fault. I was like, man, I taught land nav in the SEAL teams. I'm a great navigator. Like, I'm gonna wait till the sun rises and then I'll knock out this entire land nav course. Yeah, stupid. I didn't finish it, man. I only made it. I think there's 5 points, and I think I barely made it to point 4. And you got to get it. I'm sorry, there's 6 points. You have to get at least 5, and I think I only made it to point 4. And the Ranger instructors started heckling me about, you know, they were giving me all kinds of shit being a Navy SEAL and not being able to navigate and all that emotional stress pent up. And I quit Ranger School. I told the instructors to stuff it, and they were like, "Are you quitting?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm quitting. I'm out of here." Idiotic, emotional response in the moment. Remember, I always tell people to never quit in the moment. Like, I did it, and I had to go visit the Ranger Colonel, and thankfully he saved my career, man. The Ranger Colonel in charge of Ranger School back then was a great guy. Colonel K.K. Chin. He came from both 75th Ranger Regiment and I think 2nd Ranger Regiment. But I think he saw it through, and he connected me to one of our senior SEAL leaders he was friends with. And that senior leader, I remember telling him, "Sir, it's too late. I've messed up too much. I'm never going to be able to overcome this." And he said, "Do you honestly think that Ranger School is punishment? Don't you feel like there's something you can learn?" He said, "Here's the deal, man. People will follow you if you give them a reason to." He said, "Go back to Ranger School, crush it, and come back to the SEAL teams and give the guys a reason to follow you." And that was really a light bulb moment for me in my life, this light switch. And I remember taking the phone and like hanging it up, and Colonel Chin's across from me. And I said, "All right, sir, I'd like to stay. Will you put me back in my class?" And he goes, "Nope, absolutely not." He said, "But I will put you in Ranger School jail for a month, and then you can join the next class, so you can have some time to think about all this." And it was during that time, man, that during Ranger School jail, I spent most of my days picking up trash around Fort Benning. And it was a humbling experience. But I'll tell you what, it was probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because I finally came full circle to accept that all the mistakes I had made, getting myself in trouble in Afghanistan, the drinking, all those things, they were this guy's fault. I did it to myself. And I took ownership of it, and then really just kind of changed the way I wanted to lead and move, and came back to Ranger School the second time around and crushed it. And I learned a lot, man. It was a great school. I had a great Ranger buddy, and it was really good, man. I'm thankful I graduated in May of 06.
That's amazing. Now, I always ask, because we have a lot of guys that come over here that's Ranger qualified. Do you have any funny stories in Ranger School?
Yeah. I mean, one of the stories, there's several. My Ranger buddy and I, everybody knew that I had got sent to Ranger School by getting myself in trouble. And my Ranger buddy, who was an E7, man, he had come from one of the Alaskan infantry platoons, man. He was a great dude. And anytime we'd be doing something really hard, I'd be like, "Why am I here again?" And he'd go, "'Cause you fucked up." You know, so we'd laugh at each other, and, you know, we kept that. That was an ongoing thing all through Ranger School. But there were a couple of funny moments, or I remember we were doing a target takedown one night. This is both a funny moment and kind of an amazing moment. We were doing a target takedown one night. It was a raid. It was like a trench line and machine gun nests, and we were advancing on this position, and they had a machine gun open up on us from, like, I don't know, 75 yards away at least. And we had these little grenades made out of, like, it was like a a sand-filled sandwich bag that was then taped up with rigger's tape, and you had a small chem light attached to it, and you would crack it and throw it as a grenade. So I pulled this thing out, and I whipped it as hard as I could. And it was like a once-in-a-million shot. It flew through the air, it landed, and it rolled straight into that machine gun nest. And the instructors blew the exercise cold in the moment. And they were like, "Who threw that grenade?" And I like stood up and raised my hand. They were like, "The fucking Navy SEAL, go figure. You know, good job, continue." And they gave me a major plus for that. Like, I got written a major plus. For anybody that's in Ranger School, you know, there's major minuses and major pluses and, you know, all these things that add up at the end. So, yeah, all the guys were like, "Bro, that was amazing." But I probably couldn't have made that shot again in 100 years. It was just sheer luck. And then there was another moment that I remember that was pretty funny. We were doing the swamp movement, and it was super cold that night. And the guy that was in charge, I don't know his name, but I mean, we were this, let's see, May. So this is probably late April that we're doing this. And the temp dropped into, I'd say, mid 40s. And guys were starting to hype out. Guys were hyping out. There's no doubt about it. And we got out, and, you know, we got out of this move. I mean, you're moving through the mangrove swamp with water up to your chest at times. I mean, just this long movement in this really cold water. And we finally got out, and the guy that was supposed to be the company commander, you could tell his cylinders weren't really firing. And he gets out, and he's trying to get himself, and he puts his helmet on backwards. And he's like running around trying to tell people what to do with his helmet on backwards. And it was the funniest thing, man. I mean, you know, we're trying to help, and the instructors are finally like, "Hey, idiot, you know, how can you even give out orders? You can't even put your helmet on right." So I'll never forget that moment. It was just super funny. So
Wow. So through Ranger School, it actually, because in the Army, Ranger School is like one of the top leadership schools. Do you think you actually got leadership ability out of that?
1,000%. And it wasn't
That's
that it was rocket science. It was, Ranger School is a humbling experience. No one wears rank in Ranger School. No one cares what you've done. And when you're, and it's such a great school, because when you're in a leadership position, you need to step up and lead. And when you're not, you learn a lot about the character of people when you're not in a leadership position, because you see a lot of people who you still need to be leading even when you're not in a leadership position. You need to be helping your guys, you need to be helping your people. But you would see guys, we called them Spotlight Rangers. They were the individuals in Ranger School who, when they were in a leadership position, they were like, "I'm the best." And when they were not, they tried to stay in the shadows and do as little as possible. And they were a drag, and usually they'd get peered out. But it's a great school, and I learned a lot going through it.
That's awesome, man. And I know you said your dad was proud when you went to Ranger School.
Oh, yeah, man. I invited my dad down, pinned my tab on, so that was a really a really cool moment.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So I kind of want to go to where you really had to overcome a lot whenever you got really bad injured. Can you kind of take us through that, how that was?
Yes. September 13, 2007, probably only about 100 to 500 yards away from where we got in that big gunfight in June. We took down another target, and we walked into a really well set up ambush. And myself and two other members of the team were all shot up. DJ Shipley was again on that mission. Matty Roberts got all shot up, and teammate Luke Fenner, our team lead. I can say all their names now because everybody's out and they're okay with it. But there were originally 9 of us moving on to this target building, and we got separated in some dense vegetation. And when we got engaged, there was 6 of us, 5 SEALs and our interpreter, and 3 of the 5 of us got all shot up. So I was shot by a PKM machine gun, multiple rounds across the body armor, 2 rounds in the elbow, took rounds off my helmet, right side plate weapon, had my left night vision tube shot off. turned to try and move back to where the guys were, and that's where I took a round in the face. It caught me right in front of the ear, traveled through my face, took off most of my nose, blew out my right cheekbone, vaporized my orbital floor, just did a whole bunch of damage to my face and knocked me out. The guys thought I was dead. Maddie and Luke, who had been shot, had managed to get back behind like this tractor tire. There was one big tree that DJ was behind, and everybody else was behind that tractor tire. And I was pinned down out front when I got shot and knocked out. So this gunfight's just raging. And to make a long story short, I owe my life to the guys. I owe my life to my team leader, who we ended up calling, and I owe my life to the Air Force AC-130 gunship that was overhead. We called in the closest fire mission. My team leader, called in the closest fire mission ever executed in the Iraq War. We literally called rounds right on our position. They impacted directly in front of me, and miraculously, we were not. I mean, I got covered with dirt and debris, but I did not get fragged. No, none of us got fragged. But it killed the enemy and stopped those machine guns. My team leader then ran forward and got me back, got a tourniquet on my arm and packed my face. And then we called in more fire missions before the medevac came in. So, once again, shout out to my teammates and the gunship crew. That gunship crew would receive, I think, all the leadership, the gunner, the navigator, they all got Distinguished Flying Crosses, and the rest of the crew all got air medals for that night. And our guys, I felt my team leader deserved a Navy Cross. It got downgraded to a Silver Star. Matty Roberts got a Silver Star. I still think some of the other guys deserve more, but that's the military, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been thinking about trying to revisit that. We'll see. We'll see. But anyways, that started a pretty long journey. Go ahead.
Walk me through whenever you woke up after that happened, because I'm sure you got medevaced out, and what was it like waking up to that and figuring out what exactly happened?
So, I'll be honest, I really didn't think I was going to survive. I mean, I owe my life to once again, my teammates and God. I called out to God, and I feel like there's some miracle moments that happened that night. But when I lost a ton of blood. Doctor said it was a miracle I survived. I needed 8 blood transfusions over the 96 hours from the time I got to Baghdad until I got to Bethesda. So I think I probably got 2 units of blood in Baghdad. I think at least 1 more in Balad, and then I got a couple more in Landstuhl, and then I think a couple more in Bethesda when I got there. But I remember when I woke up in Baghdad, I was so elated, like, oh my God, I'm still alive. Like I was so happy and high as a kite. So I felt like $1 million, on all that morphine. So, that was the first thing I remember. And I remember I tried to talk and I couldn't. I was trached. So air just came out, and the nurse came up and was like, hey, Lieutenant, you're super messed up. Here's what's happening. You have no use of your left arm. You were shot in the left arm. You're shot in the face. You're trached. You're wired shut. So you're not going to be able to talk. I was like, okay, give me a pen. And my commanding officer and our command mass chief were there. And I remember, the first things I asked, hey, are my guys okay? And they said, yep, the guys are good. Maddie and Luke are out of surgery. They're good. I said, has my wife been notified? And my CO said, yes. And then I wrote, do I still look pretty? And they said, no. So I said, this will probably be an improvement.
Man, walk me through your recovery, Jason. Holy crap. I couldn't even imagine going through that. I'm sure that had to mess with you psychologically, just doing recovery, and you're used to operating at a high tempo, and now it's like the rug's been pulled out from underneath you and you got to learn a lot of stuff now.
Yeah, no, I won't. I think the first week was the hardest. I think after the reality, for the first 3 or 4 days, like, oh my God, I'm still alive. And then I think the next week, by the time I got to Bethesda, I think reality started to set in. Like, you're super messed up. Like, I'll never forget the doctor in charge of my care came in, and I remember asking her, I wrote to her, I was like, hey, how many weeks will it take to put me back together? And she was just like incredulous. She was like, what? She's like, Lieutenant, it's going to take years to put you back together. And I think that was kind of the first time I was like, holy shit. And I will admit it was kind of depressing in the beginning. I felt like I was totally broken. I felt disfigured. I hadn't looked at myself. I was afraid to look at myself. I had no use of my left arm. They were talking about amputating it in the beginning. I was so weak from blood loss, I couldn't even get out of bed. Nurse had to help me use the bathroom. I think the turning point was a couple of different things. I had some people that came into the room they were overwhelmed. I don't know if any of you guys have ever went to Bethesda or Walter Reed during the war. It's a pretty hard place to be. I mean, when you see our brothers and sisters, war just devastates people. They're blown apart and burned and missing limbs, and it's overwhelming for anyone, even people I think who are prepared for it. And these people were friends of the family who had come, and they weren't prepared for it. And they were talking amongst themselves while the nurse had come in to work on me, and they were like, oh my God, what a shame, what a pity. We've sent all these men and women off to war, and they're so broken, they're never going to be the same. Is this worth it? And all this stuff, this pity party. Then they left, and it was in that moment that I was kind of like, that's not going to be me. I'm not going to do that. I was like, rock bottom in Afghanistan was rock bottom, and you had to climb out of that hole, and you created all these things on how to lead yourself and lead others and drive forward and overcome. Well, guess what, man? Now you got to put your money where your mouth is. Yes, this sucks, but there's only one way forward. There's only one way through this, and that's forward. And you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself, and you just need to drive. And that was kind of the defining moment for me. And that's when I wrote out that sign on the door. I told my wife, I said, hey, I refuse to feel sorry for myself again. From this point forward, I will not. And I said, nobody else allowed into this room. And that's when I wrote out that sign on the door that said, attention to all who enter here. If you're coming in this room with sadness or sorrow, don't bother. The wounds I received, I got in a job that I love, doing it for people that I love, defending the freedom of a country that I deeply love. I'll make a full recovery. What is full? That's the absolute utmost. Physically, I have the ability to recover. And I'm going to push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. So yeah, that sign, it was originally on a regular piece of printer paper that I was using to write with. And then several days later, we transferred it to a large orange poster board. And I told my wife, no one's allowed into my room until they read that. And that poster board kind of took on a life of its own. It got picked up by the national media, and today it's everywhere, and earned me an invitation to the White House to meet President Bush. He signed it, and it now hangs in the Wounded Ward at Walter Reed.
That's awesome. So going through your transition, what was your first small win that you can say that helped you? Okay, I'm now on my road to recovery. This is it.
The transition out of the military, or as I was recovering, or both?
As you're recovering, like, what was your first small win that you're like, okay, I'm going to make it through this. I'm going to be good. That you can recall, maybe.
I'll be honest. It was, this will sound crazy, but it was walking a lap around the whole fifth floor. When I was wounded, the Wounded Ward was the 5th floor. It's now the 4th floor. I'll never forget, man, my first day of rehab, it's amazing how much we take our bodies and health for granted. And if you've ever been injured or something happened, it's so humbling when you had your health. I mean, here I was in the best shape of my life, literally training to get ready for our Tier 1 screening. And now I was laying in a bed and I couldn't even move. I couldn't even use the bathroom by myself. And probably a week later was the first rehab. And I remember there were several things they wanted me to do. One of the things was just to walk in place. They had me get out of bed and stand up and walk in place. And I think it was for 5 minutes. I felt like I had run a marathon. I was so exhausted just standing there walking in place. And I remember several days later, they wanted me I had barely any use. This had to have been weeks later because I had no use of my left hand at first. But I remember that was super humbling. They had these little plastic cones that probably weighed half an ounce. And I had to grab them and like stack them. And I couldn't do it. My hand would not work, my fingers. It was just frustrating and humbling. So going from that initial walking in place, like a week later, they wanted me, like they would get me up to walk and it would be like, okay, we're going to walk around your room. And now your goal is to make it to the nurse's desk, which was, maybe 15 yards outside or 10 or, 15 feet outside my room. And I did not let my kids see me for probably 6 weeks. And there was a reason, because I was so messed up. I wanted to get fixed some more, and I wanted to walk into the room where my kids were. I didn't want my kids to come into the room and see me when I was in ICU with all these tubes and how messed up I was. So it was my goal to walk into that room. And when I managed to walk around the whole 5th floor, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And that was kind of an amazing experience and victory to be able to walk in there to see my kids again for the first time.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, man.
Yeah.
That's similar to my when I got injured. I got 4 screws in the L bracket in the rod in my right leg from my IED blast that happened. And when I was in the unit, they used to bring my daughter, and I used to walk around with her holding my little IV bag and all that stuff up. So I get it, man. That's something real personal, and it builds you up because you the only person doing it. Like nobody else in the unit was doing it. Like you walking, and it's like I didn't want my daughter to see me laying in that bed and see me with my leg up. So I would limp around, but I would make sure I got around the unit. And then, like you said, it make you feel like you ran a marathon and you trying to breathe. You can't catch your breath, and then like you sit down, that's that. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So that's real admirable, man. Like I
Same,
can
same to
definitely.
you. Yep, you're right. Walking that metal IV pole.
That's it. You leaning on it, it's your lifeline. You leaning on it, and you're moving, man. It's moving slow.
Yeah.
But that's amazing. Even when you got out, like when you got out of the military, like your first 90 days, like after leaving team, like what hit you the hardest knowing that you wouldn't have that kind of role or that leadership role?
I will say my transition was probably a little softer and easier than some guys. I think for some guys it was really abrupt. The SEAL teams took good care of me. I was wounded in my 15th year. It took 4 years to put me back together. The first year I was at home and surgeries the whole year. And then the next 3 years, it was kind of, up and down through surgeries. So I ended up being assigned or requested and being assigned to the unit that I was hoping to go to. I wasn't able to be operational, but I was able to be there and support and get to do some things, which was great. So it was fulfilling for me to finish my career on my terms. But I knew that I wasn't going to be able to go. I tried to get back operational, but I reached a point about 2.5 years after getting put back together. They were never able to fix my arm. I can't extend my arm any further than this. I can't bend it any further than this. So I kind of realized that, those days were over. I started the medical retirement path at the end of my surgeries, and that took me to 21 years. My goal was to get to 20, and they took care of me and helped me to do that. So by the time I got out, I had been non-operational for quite a few years. So I was ready for the transition. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was out of the military and I miss the camaraderie. I miss the shenanigans and the laughing and the nothing was off limits. We made fun of everything. And you
Everything.
know, everybody's, you know, we live in a world where people, it's almost like a requirement to be offended if anybody says anything negative about anything, like, oh, you got to be offended. You know, they talked about, you know, the fact that you have blue eyes, so you got to be offended. Anybody who doesn't have blue eyes should be offended. You know, it's like, seriously, like, lighten up, Francis. So I miss that, and I miss having this purpose and drive. But I began to realize that you got to create that in the civilian world. Like, you got to create your own. And I ran a nonprofit for a while, which was amazing, helping out our brothers and sisters. And then I began to see this power in my story, and that led me to start speaking. And then it just kind of launched me on this entrepreneurial journey. And I
Yes.
try to help others to figure that out. I feel like as veterans, like, we sacrifice as service members, you sacrifice for the American dream so that other people, other Americans, they're not sacrificing. You know, they're reaping the rewards of being an American citizen, the freedom and opportunity to go after their own hopes and goals and dreams. And when we're in the military, you give that up, you put all that on hold. So I feel like every veteran should have every opportunity to accomplish their American dream. I'm accomplishing mine now. I mean, it took me a little while to figure that out, but now that's like a mission of mine. I want to motivate and inspire people, and I want to continue to achieve my American dream and help other veterans accomplish theirs.
Gotcha, man. I respect that, Mr. Jason. I really do. Now, a lot of vets, we struggle in silence, and we talk about this on a few interviews here and there. Did you ever hit a season before or after you got out of the service where you just felt disconnected from everything else, like a lot of us go through when we first get out?
Yeah, well, mine happened a few years late. It was before I got out. I was starting to get out. And I think it was the culmination of getting out of the military. We moved into a new house, and moving's always stressful. I was launching the nonprofit that I was hoping to run. I think I was starting to write my book, and there was a lot of friction between me and the agent because he did not want me to write the book I wrote. He didn't want me to talk about my mistakes. He only wanted me to write about combat. And I was like, that's not my story. And he and I really butted heads hard on that point. I almost at one point thought this is never going to happen. So,
Mm.
yeah, and I started struggling, man. I started, like many of us, I was pushing everybody away. I stopped going to, sports games and stuff, and I was sitting in my room drinking. And thankfully, my wife kind of called me out. And we had a rule when we got married, like death. That's it. That's the only way out of this. So you weren't allowed to bring up the divorce word. We had to communicate and navigate through whatever problems we were having. And I'll never forget, man, we were driving out to an event. I actually write about this in our marriage book. And she said, if we're not careful, this could be the beginning of the end. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Mm.
And she said, you shutting me out and not communicating with me, and you trying to deal with whatever it is you have going on by yourself, it is moving us down a path that could be the beginning of the end of our marriage if we can't communicate and figure this out. And like, it was such a shock to me because it was such a, like, we had agreed, man, neither of us ever had brought that up. I know there's a lot of couples that every other week they're like, I'm going to divorce you. And never for us. So for her to do that, and she did it in the right way. It wasn't accusatory. It wasn't emotional. It was just like super fact based. And it kind of shocked me and made me, I was, like I said, I was still active duty. So I went and met with the psych. I went and met with the chaplain. And then I started to explore all kinds of different modalities and treatments. I did stellate ganglion block. I ended up getting a service dog. I quit drinking for a while, which I've done multiple times over the years. I did hyperbaric treatment. I did many things. And I just tell guys and gals that are out there, you owe it to yourself to figure out what's going to work for you. Because the thing is, what works for you may not work for me, and what works for Penn may not work for either of us. And I meet so many guys and gals, they'll like try one thing and it doesn't work, and then they immediately just go back to isolating and self-medicating. And I'm like, man, if I call it the fail breach scenario, like in combat, if you have a fail breach, never once ever did we go, hey, fail breach. Okay, guys, we're done. Let's go home. Guys, the enemy's inside, but we're just going to leave them there and let's go home. Man, no, you immediately figured out, okay, where's the new breach point? How are we going to reattack this? And your mental health should be the same way.
True. Going into that, like, what's the funniest civilian world moment where you realized when you was gonna attack something at the team mental, but you was like, wait a minute, I ain't gotta worry about that no more. I'm not an operator no more.
Yeah, I think we're all super aggressive. I think it was more of bringing the dark humor to the civilian world. Yeah, I frequently you realize, man, you'll say things or we drop F-bombs like they're a B-52 strike. I mean, there are things you say in the military that everybody's like, oh yeah, that's normal. And in the civilian world, people are like, oh my God. And my wife's originally from Louisville, and we had come home and we went out to some club and not club, like a bar, and we were hanging out with friends, and it was almost like they were doing this open mic where people were getting up and telling jokes. And I had a few drinks, and I'm fresh out of the military, and I got up on stage and told this joke about a dead baby. Oh my God, everybody in the room looked at me like, what is wrong with this idiot? And it made me, my wife still brings it up to this day. I mean, so yeah, it was a funny moment about transitioning out of the military where our mindset, does not match. And it was a good lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say this. Us as veterans, we do got some dark humor, and only veterans would understand some of our jokes,
I
brother.
kind of want to hear the baby joke now.
I told it
That's
at Ranger
hilarious.
School, and I think I had to do push-ups for it.
See, I think we get a lot of that's that crazy stamp that gets on there because we'll tell a funny combat story and then we're like, it's normal to us, but they'll sit there with their mouths wide open like that's normal to y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's pretty much normal to us. Parts of the transitioning out, like how did it affect anything with your children?
No, I'll be honest, man. Getting wounded was a big blessing for my relationship with my kids. I mean, I had been gone their entire lives until I got wounded, and then suddenly I was home. I never deployed again after I was wounded. I mean, I did some local trips and stuff like that. They were short, but for the formidable years where my kids were in middle school and even start getting up into the start of high school, I didn't travel. And what an amazing gift. I started traveling again after that, after the transition. I was doing the nonprofit, the book had come out, I was starting to speak, I was building my speaking company, and that started me traveling again. But what was cool is I was able to frequently take my kids, and I would take my kids one-on-one. That was one of the great gifts about speaking. As opposed to military, it's not like, you can't be like, hey, little buddy, you want to go with me to Iraq? It'll be really fun. We can hang out there. It'll be a fun trip. You're not doing that with your kids in the military. But for my kids, there would be trips. I took my kids. I did a couple of trips where I'd be close to a ski mountain, and we love to ski. So I would take one of my kids, and I did that over the years, which was just this amazing gift. Now they're all older, and heck, my oldest daughter's married now. But those were good opportunities when I transitioned. And then my wife and I, we were running our business together, which not everybody can run your business with your wife. I got some friends that are like, oh my God, we could never run a business together. But my wife and I were a great team, and we have been aligned in how we want to grow. And I will say this, when I first got out of the military, I think many of us aren't sure what you want to do. I went into the nonprofit path because I wanted to help other veterans. But one of the downsides of the nonprofit is you don't really make any money. So and I think at some point you have to decide where do you want, you need to look at the long run. So my advice to any veteran who's, or service member getting out of the military, or even if you're a veteran now, think about where do you want to be when you want to retire? Like at what age and what level of financial income do you want to have? And then you got to reverse and do the math on what you need to do to accomplish that. Because most of us, we put money away, and I was doing this. We were just kind of running with like, it seems so far away at that point. But I realized that some of the things I was doing in business and with the nonprofit wasn't going to help me get to where I wanted to go. So that really, several years ago, my wife and I sat down and just said, hey, we've got to change what we're doing. I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, written by a veteran, Robert Kiyosaki, which is an amazing book. If any of you guys are interested, it really teaches, it changed my outlook. I didn't come from money. I didn't have family with money. So it really changed my outlook on how you put your money to work, so that, you know, you can continue to grow, learning to diversify income streams, all these things. So now I'm involved in a bunch of different things on the entrepreneur side. So continuing to help veterans, but I'm also able to take care of my family and give back and be involved in the things I want to be involved in.
Amazing. So you got some books.
I do.
And you just had a book with your wife, right?
That's right. Yeah, 4 books. So The Trident is the first one. The Trident is the story. It's the whole story of me as a young SEAL and messing up. I get deep into the weeds on the mistakes I made in Afghanistan and going through Ranger School and growing up and then being wounded. So, you know, a lot of people really love that book. It became a New York Times bestseller. Then Overcome was the how-to. That was kind of written more from a business or self-help book, you know, for anybody. I talk about I survived an enemy ambush, but everybody goes through life ambushes, and it's all about that. How do you overcome the life ambushes that are going to come along and lead yourself to success? And then I wrote a planner called the Point Man Planner, and then my wife and I wrote a book, Mission Invincible Marriage.
That's awesome. With the books, what part of your story you think stuck with veterans?
I think the biggest thing that sticks with veterans, I would say there's 2 things. Number one, in the Trident, which my agent didn't like me talking about my mistakes, but it seems to be one of the biggest things that resonates with, at least with people that have made a mistake, which is damn near everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, maybe not as big as some of the mistakes that I made or others have made, but what I try and tell people is it's never too late. I almost bought into that. And I think too many veterans, that's why they end up taking their lives. It's why they end up homeless or just without purpose, because they tell themselves, I'm too late. The best years are behind me. And that's bullshit. If you still have a pulse, if you're not dead, it's not too late. You may not be able to fix everything. We can't always fix every relationship. We can't always undo some things. But I'll tell you what, you can chart a new path if you're willing to. And I am living proof of that, man. I'm a kid that messed up and, like I said, almost got myself kicked out of the SEAL teams from sitting in a chair in Afghanistan with a gun in my mouth to a New York Times best-selling author and overcome all these different things. Like, I ain't special, man. Anybody else can do it. So that seems to resonate. And then the other thing is the life ambush and being on the X. Veterans understand that. They understand, like, hey, man, if you're pinned down in an ambush, you have to fight your way out of it. You have to get off the X. But I mean, so many veterans, you were taught all these things in the military, but they don't carry it forward into the civilian world. And I think many that read my book, Overcome, it like relates and they connect with it. And they're like, holy shit, man, I've been sitting on the X for years. And I think it motivates them. I get a lot of letters and messages like, hey, thank you. I really needed that.
That's amazing, man. And we appreciate that. Other than your books, what else are you doing now, Jason? I know you go around speaking a lot.
Yeah, except I've scaled that back a little bit. My front side focus. I've scaled back speaking. I love speaking. I want to continue to do it because I love motivating and inspiring people. God has given me an amazing opportunity, and I love it when I speak and people come up to me afterwards and are like, "Oh my God, I can't tell you how much I needed that. I'm stuck on the X, or I'm stuck this." But There are two opportunities. I got involved in a new. I'm an investor and a founding managing partner in a company called Patriot Hard Seltzer. So it's a whiskey-based seltzer, and it's all about honoring the sacrifice of fire, law enforcement, military, and our first responders, medical responders. So on each can, I'm on one of the cans. I'm the military rep. Then we have a firefighter who survived the falling of the towers. We have an amazing flight medic, Nikki Selby. You may know her. She's out there in the public space. She was a military medic and then became a flight nurse. And then we have Lou Veloce, who was a ATF agent responsible for purchasing the most guns off the street, did all these undercover ops. So part of our proceeds go back to support nonprofits. And it's a great drink. So I've got that out there. And then I'm a founding member of a new tech company called TurboVets. And we are trying to unify through some high-level AI and automation integration technology the both benefits and how we manage our personnel service record on the active duty side and the veteran side, and unify these things together so that all of us can have a customized transition throughout your entire life cycle. At any point, if you need help, we want to integrate with every nonprofit so that if any of us as veterans type in, because all your data is now stored in this secure place, we're able to use AI to scan it. And if you said, hey, I'm looking for entrepreneurial advice, it would automatically connect you to programs in the VA, vocational rehabilitation and employment programs, or it would connect you to nonprofits that would match and say, hey, Penn and Chris, you guys came from the Army. These are programs. And then because we've uploaded all the forms, we're then able to automate and send those things. So pretty amazing tech. We're under contract with Coast Guard, and I've got a bunch of meetings coming up with Army, Navy, and Air Force, and we're trying to get our pilot. We've got a funded pilot ready to go in the VA, and we're trying to get that across the finish line.
That's amazing. TurboVets.
It will be free.
I definitely want to.
It will be free for veterans. That was part of our bylaws. I feel like a veteran should never have to pay for their benefits. Once again, I want to help veterans accomplish their American dream. We can give you the tools. Ultimately, it's going to be on the veteran. Like, you have to get off the X and drive forward and do the work. But I want to give you all the tools to help you do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome, Jason. Do you have anything in closing before we get off of here?
No, I just want to say, man, to the vets out there, we need you, man. We need you. Everybody knows, look at the division that exists in this country. And one of the great things about the military, it taught us that race, creed, color, none of those things matter, man. It's all about the guy next to you. It's about accomplishing the mission. And I feel like we've lost that in America. We're so pitted against each other. And how do we accomplish that? You don't have to be out in the limelight, but you accomplish it by being successful, by being a leader in your family and a leader in your community, and accomplishing the American dream. Because there's 17 million veterans in America. Now, many of them are older, so I would dare say there's probably 9 million of working age in a position like us to make an impact around them, and we need you, man. So we want to give you the tools, but don't sit back and say, oh, I've already served, I'm not doing that anymore. Man, we got to get our country back on track and bring people back together, and I think our veterans are the answer to that. And no, I'm not running for office. Hell no, man.
Yeah, we'll shut that down now.
Yeah,
Jason's not running.
I am not running for office, man. Man,
Awesome.
What a swamp it is there. I want to do things from the outside.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, Jason, man, I just want to express my gratitude to you for taking the time out and sitting down and talk with us and walking us through your journey and everything that you've been through. I can't thank you enough, man.
Man.
That's my honor, man. Thank you.
Definitely amazing.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Definitely amazing, man. Oh no, you good, brother. Just definitely amazing, man. Like, you drop some gems on how, like, people think one thing, but it's never that. It's always something else going on, man. So I just appreciate you for really coming on and giving us the time and to talk to you and dig a little bit into who Jason Redman is, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys, man. I appreciate you guys being a voice for the veterans out there. Keeping
Absolutely.
keeping it swaggy.
Well, everybody, see Swaggy, baby. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, till the next time, stay swaggy, stay strong, y'all. Peace.
Peace.